So it's mid-February 2016. Last night was probably the coldest night so far this winter. Tonight should be even colder yet. Dipped down low single digits last night, incredibly windy. Today is a whopping 6 degrees. It's going to go to -11, -10 I think tonight. So we're in the depths of winter. It's as cold as it's going to get probably this winter. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to share notes on how we've been heating our home. Our little home here was built in the 1950s. Has almost zero insulation. It's basically, the walls are homosote. It's basically like compressed fiberboard with an air gap, and then on the outside there's a 1/4 inch of foam insulation. We've got like R1 walls and windows that are single pane. They just have storms in them. And we've been able to heat our home so far this entire winter on less than a cord of wood. And we have had the backup heating system kick on barely at all. And there are a number of reasons why I think that we're able to get such good efficiency out of such an inefficient home overall. And this wood stove we bought last November, used on Craigslist for $250. It looked horrible. It was being used to burn trash. We took the whole thing apart, gutted it, scrubbed it clean, repainted it, new window, new gasketing, etc., etc. And so now it's been serving us amazingly. And some of the things that are unique to our setup, well, not unique, but just highlights that I think really as a whole add to the efficiency. A few things. One, so this is single wall, 6-inch. Very important to me, I put in an $8 damper plate. I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of people that will say don't do this, etc. And it's great. Figure out what feels safe by you. But we find when the stove is running in a healthy way, and right now this is really cooking nice and hot and clean, there should be no smoke coming out outside. Taking that damper plate and nearly closing it gives a ton more heat into the room. We put our safety measure above the damper plate so that I try to keep that right smack dab in the middle of the safe range, above where it's being dampened. And hopefully that's safe. It seems reasonable to us. This little passive fan moves over 100 cubic feet a minute of air without any battery. It just uses thermocoupling. It was $100, but it should last many, many, many years, and it's completely silent. And that helps take the air and send it this way so it can rise up the stairs more efficiently. The other things that work really nicely for us, I've got fire brick banked against the stove body, so that absorbs the heat and releases it to the room a little bit more slowly after the stove has died out overnight. This crazy contraption I'm going to talk about in a minute, but this is dryer duct that goes down into the basement, is attached to a long old piece of ductwork in the basement, and has a 6-inch blower fan sucking hot air off the stove and sending it into the basement. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the thing that I think is critical that has really made life better with this stove is, it's going to be hard for me to get a shot of this, but in the back, same thing, 4-inch dryer duct, and that's HVAC tape, high heat tape, is taped to the back of the stove. Most stoves, if not all, made from 1970 onward, have a hole in the back. I think they're all 4-inch, maybe some are 3, that it was required by law, that allows you to have the option of feeding your stove air from the outside world. So that tube actually goes down in our basement, goes across, and then there's a window in the basement where there's a board with insulation, and it goes outside, and then it has a mesh over it to make sure mice can't get in. I can take a look at that, although I'm not going outside today if I can help it. And the reason that's so important is that when this stove is cranking, it needs a ton of air. Most stoves get their air from the room itself. So anywhere there's a tiny crack in the window, or, for example, where you can see daylight through your door, right? Where this is, again, really inefficient home. We're dealing with what we have. You know, we've patched here, we repair there, but we're not putting tons of money into, you know, getting brand new windows, brand new doors. But by having the air from the outside come into the stove, all of the heat that's expanding the air in the room is creating a pillow and pushing. You'd be hard-pressed to feel any drafts. Now, I can feel the cold radiating through the single pane, but it's not that bad. But what really gets you is that cold, leaking air rushing in and rushing over to the stove to get combusted and sent up the chimney and out. This is the biggest thing, and it's completely passive, is this 4-inch duct sealed to the back of the stove. That's lasted for over a year. At some point I'll have to check and make sure. Maybe add some more tape. And that means the stove is breathing all of its life force from the outside world, where there's an infinity of available oxygen rather than the very finite air that's in our home. I'll do another video that's in much deeper depth about this, but right now our home is being heated almost entirely from syngas. I have another older video, but I'm going to do an update one. Sorry, I got a hair on that. And so this is using stainless steel retorts. The next batch will be all locust chips. Would never work as firewood, but it works great to make charcoal. I see a little floating dust. Give me a second. There we go. And then I can bring that outside. We'll do that in another video. I'll link to that. But right now our stove is putting off a ton of heat. I mean, it's gorgeous warm heat. It's probably just about 70 degrees in this room. Outside it is approaching 0 Fahrenheit with heavy winds. We've used less than a cord of wood. It's been a mild winter overall, but we'll get out the other end of this winter using less than 2 cords of wood, mainly because the damper in the stack helps keep the heat in the room. The stove has its air coming from the outside, and we're using the stove to generate a ton of charcoal throughout the winter. Sometimes we'll do 3 batches a day in there, and that offsets our firewood use pretty dramatically. And there's our firewood that's pre-drying and heating in the room. We like to keep that full. Very, very low cost, very low tech, very approachable and doable by anyone. Again, this is a $250 Craigslist buy. The brand new stovepipe and ductwork and professional installation was another, I think, $800. That represents a total cost, well, of around $1,000, which is a nice chunk of money. But before this stove, this home was being heated with natural gas. It cost $400 a month because of how incredibly leaky it was to heat this in the winter. 3 months of heating with this wood stove paid for this wood stove, and this should last more or less many, many years. It'll need repairs and cleaning, but last a very long time. This is how we're heating our home, and it's working really nicely. I'll take a quick shot of what's going on in the basement so you can see. So we're down in the basement, and this is that 6-inch blower. It costs $26. It uses less than 30 watts, and right now it's pumping really hot air that's been siphoned off the stove, and it's sending it down into our basement to add another pillow of warmth underneath. That goes back through. It's wrapped in insulation so it doesn't get cold as it travels through the basement. And this will be another video as our root cellar. Let me get that open. You can see this is the tube that goes through the wall to the outside. That's insulated and sealed and air sealed here. You can tell it is very cold out today. There's ice on this on the inside, but whatever, this is our root cellar. And this sends right up and in and goes directly to the stove. Everything the stove needs, breathing-wise, is satisfied by the outside. And since this is our root cellar, that's just another place to keep things cold. We're going to talk about this in another video too, but here's all our potatoes and onions and fun stuff. Thanks for watching. Hope you stay warm.